you say Lapland to an American, we have no idea what you're talking about. Hey guys, welcome back to the Girl Gone London channel. If you're new here, my name is Kaylin. I'm a dual American and UK citizen, and today I am going over 7 more lesser known differences between the UK and the US. Now, I love these types of videos because I feel like YouTube does not need more of the Americans drive on the right, Brits drive on the left, pants versus trousers, the basic normal things that you hear in a lot of videos. I do these videos by sitting down and really racking my brain for the things that are the smaller differences. A lot of times you're not going to notice unless you are actually actively living in either country or have experienced extensive amounts of time in both countries. With that being said, let's get on to the video. Okay, so the first difference has to do with what happens with leftover food that cannot be eaten. Let's talk about like eggshells or maybe tough pieces of meat that even the dog doesn't want. What happens to that leftover food? The stem that's cut off of the cauliflower. I know someone's gonna comment and be like, you can use that, but just the things that you are going to discard and not prepare with your meal. So in the UK, they have what are called food waste bins, and these are put out with the recycling or rubbish, whichever is going that week, and they actually get picked up from your house and taken to massive composting sites. This was a shock to me when I first moved to the UK because we did not have the equivalent in the US. What most people would do is put the food down the garbage disposal. So putting food down a garbage disposal basically means that the food is pulverized to a point that if you add water, it sort of just goes into the water sewage. So it's not a separate area that these food particles or scraps ends up going to. It's just completely obliterated until it's kind of a liquidy waste. Now, some people in the US do have compost piles, so that is something that people might do in their own backyards, and not everybody has a garbage disposal. So if you don't compost and you don't have a garbage disposal in the US, typically, unfortunately, you will just be throwing away the leftover food parts, but most people will have a garbage disposal. They are very common in America, and so that's a different way of getting rid of food waste than in the UK, where as a culture, everyone should expect that their food waste is probably going to have a separate bin to be taken away each week. Now, the next one is a short one, but it is one that isn't talked about as much when it comes to food terms or words we use for different foods in the UK versus the US. In the UK, this is called a spring onion. In the US, you would more likely be calling this a scallion. Okay, the next difference comes down to something that can be very shocking for parents from the US who move to the UK with their children. School systems here in the UK often impose a fine if you are taking your child out of school for an unexcused absence. So for taking a child out for a week to go on vacation in the UK, there's a possibility that you could get approval, but that is relatively rare depending on the circumstance. For the most part, a lot of schools and councils that these schools are in will fine the parents a set amount of money. So I think once you get so many fines, then it becomes an issue that needs to be looked into further. But for the most part, it's just a fine that you pay. I have read this is because the schools get a certain amount of money for a child being in school that day. And so if your child is not being sent into school, they don't get this money. I haven't done extensive research, so you can educate me down below if you're more familiar with the school systems in the UK. But I do know that many expat parents moving to the UK are very surprised to find that if you take little Timmy out of school for a week on vacation and it's not approved by the school, not only is it not approved, but you actually have to pay. Now, in the US, state by state, district by district is going to be different, but I have never heard in the public school system of a fine for taking your child out of school. There is this idea that a parent is solely in charge of what a child does or doesn't do. If it turns into truancy, i.e. not coming to school enough times that it's becoming like an actual issue that is impacting this child's future, then that gets taken to the next level. Again, not really a fine, but then it gets taken to higher ups who can work with the parents to figure out why the kid's not in school. But if you're like, little Timmy, I'm taking you out for 1 week to go visit your grandparents in Alaska because this is the only week that we can make work, and we think that family time and vacation time is important, you just take the kid out of school. There's not a fine. You might find it difficult depending on the teachers at your kid's school, but for the most part, this idea that you can be fined for choosing to take your child on vacation during school time is not a concept that we have in most states or most parts of the US. The fourth thing on my list that you definitely need to know if you're planning on visiting the UK is it is illegal to carry mace or pepper spray with you anywhere in the UK. This is classified as a firearm. It is illegal. You are not allowed to have it. In the US, it is often allowed to legally carry pepper spray on you for self-protection. This is something that many people in big cities might do. They carry a tiny thing of pepper spray in case they get into a situation that requires them to use this kind of force against someone else in self-protection only. In the UK, it does not matter if it's in self-protection or what have you. You cannot be in possession of pepper spray or mace anywhere in the UK. Now, the fifth difference is interesting to expats because it has to do with citizenship and birth. Does giving birth in a country mean that your child is automatically a citizen? The countries differ again. In the USA, if you give birth to your child in the US, they automatically become a US citizen, except in two scenarios. The first is if you are an accredited diplomat in the US from another country, then your child does not automatically get US citizenship. And similarly, there's a clause that if you are an invading force in the US from another country, your child also does not get citizenship. But anybody else, your child, just the child, not the parents, will automatically be given citizenship for being born within the US. So this would be most common if somebody were on vacation, or maybe they were an expat family in the US and they had a child while there. Again, the parents do not get citizenship because the child is a citizen, but if that child is physically born in the US, it is automatically a US citizen. This does not apply to the UK. You cannot simply be born in the UK to non-UK parents and have UK citizenship. You have to have some sort of tie through a parent having UK citizenship in order to qualify for that. So it is not based on your geographic birth location of being born in the UK. It is based on ties to your parents and their citizenship. So those are two very different means of obtaining citizenship, and definitely are a point of contention for many families, positively and negatively, between scenarios they've encountered in giving birth in the US and giving birth in the UK, depending on their existing citizenships. Okay, the next difference is the concept of undertaking. And I know a UK person watching this will automatically know what I mean. An American probably won't. Because the concept of undertaking, which is essentially to pass a car on the highway from the wrong side, so I'll explain in a second, it's not really a concept in the US. They call this lane discipline. So in the UK, it is very, very clear you are supposed to drive on the left-hand side as the slowest side. Then if you need to pass the person on the left, you can pass on the right. If you're American, this is switched obviously from the left and right based on the driving patterns. But in the UK, you would not or should not pass somebody who is in the middle lane on the left-hand side, because you would be passing them in the slow lane. And this would be called undertaking. So you need to pass going to the right of them. This is something that is taught extensively in a British driving test and driver's ed, and is just a concept that really the whole country has heard of. The concept of undertaking. So you might see somebody doing this and you say, oh, I can't believe he just undertook me or undertook them. In America, it is technically advised against to pass in that manner, but we really don't have that same concept of lane discipline. And by lane discipline, I don't mean like it is kind of free for all on some American roads, but I don't mean discipline as like we're not disciplined, but rather that's just not the ways of the roads in the US. So I was actually taught that when driving on the highway in the US, it was typically safer for me to stay in the middle. So people can pass on the left, they can pass on the right. In the US, technically the left lane, the furthest left lane is going to be the fastest lane. So that leaves the fastest lane for people to go fast or to pass, and then the right lane was often for people getting off the highway. But in America, we also have exit ramps, sometimes off both sides of the highway. So they would say the best thing to do is for just general like easy driving and safety is to just, what a British person would say is sit in the middle lane. So I was taught to sit in the middle lane, drive in the middle lane, and that was my experience. And then I moved to the UK and they're like, this is a bad thing, do not do this. So I had to relearn a whole new way of driving. Okay, so the next difference, we're gonna get a little bit heavy here, is registration of sex offenders. So in the US, if you commit a crime, that means that you must register as a sex offender. So it could be any number of things, but it is basically what it sounds like. You have to register with a national database, and people can look up offenders in their area and where they live and a mugshot of them. For many people who do commit these crimes, this lasts, I think it lasts for most of their life. So you basically have to forever be registered as a sex offender. And this means that families with kids, or really anybody moving into the area, can very easily go on these resources. I'm not going to show it on here, but I will show you the websites that you can test it out for yourself. You can see exactly where people are living in your local area that have been registered as sex offenders. So when it comes to buying a new house or deciding on a school for your child to go to, everybody, you don't have to request, every single person has access to this national system that is meant to keep the kids safe from people who have done predatory things. And that's just, it's very common. We all expect to be able to look up and to know where these people are living. In the UK, it is much different. So you can request this information in terms of figuring out a person's background if you have a good case for needing to know it. So the UK site and UK experiences of people I've heard from, I've never done it myself, has told me that if you feel that your child is in danger from a person, or you have, again, very specific reasons to need to know this information, that it is available for you to request certain kinds of information in that realm. But it is by no means the same kind of open book policy as in the US. And the final difference has to do with a place called Lapland. So if I said Lapland and you're a UK viewer, you could probably comment right now and tell me exactly what that means to you. If you say Lapland to an American, we have no idea what you're talking about. So Lapland is a real place. Typically it's thought of as the northern part of Finland, but my research shows that it actually spans across a few Scandinavian countries. It is a real place, but it is also where Father Christmas lives. And so Brits are familiar with the term Lapland because that is kind of woven into a lot of the stories. And again, it is also a real place that you can go on holiday if you want like an igloo-filled snowy holiday. So like I said, Americans have no concept of Lapland. Our Santa Claus lives at what we call the North Pole. And just in general, as like a destination, we've never heard of Lapland as a place to take a holiday to. I had never heard of Lapland until I moved to the UK, and we were just with a group of my American friends a couple of weeks ago, and my husband mentioned Lapland as part of some conversation, and there were blank stares all around. So if you mention Lapland in the US, you're gonna have to explain what you mean. Okay, so that takes us to the end of this video. I hope some of these were lesser known differences that you hadn't heard between the UK and the US. I would love to hear if any of them in particular were surprising to you or new to you. I love hearing that I've been able to educate people on something that they didn't know before. Because like I said, I feel like there are a lot of very basic videos on these topics of the UK versus the US, and I'm trying to dig deep. I feel like I'm digging even deeper now that I've done quite a few of these styles of videos, but I'm gonna keep going and we'll see how many lesser known differences we can uncover over the years. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.